On today's Locked On NBA Game Nights, plenty to talk about from a full 10-day slate. Let's dive into it on today's show.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NBA Game Night. Your team every day.
Let's get it going on today's show. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Make us your first listen every single day as we cover every single game, Sunday through Monday, the whole way through this NBA season. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. Joining me as always is Gavin Schall, host of Locked On Knicks. Gavin, a fun 10-game slate here. There were some lopsided scores, but there were still plenty of storylines. How are you feeling on the first Locked On NBA Game Night Saturday night?
Rylan, super excited to be with you, man. I think it was a great way to start the season and start our tenure here on Locked On NBA. In that third game of the season for a bunch of these teams, you start to get a real feel. Some things that you thought confirmed, some big questions like not quite answered yet. So I'm excited to dive into it in a couple different contenders.
Obviously, this whole show is blanketed by it's early in the season, but we have to react to what we're seeing. We're going to start with the first game of the day. We won't stay in chronological order, but we will start with the most pressing game, I think, and that's the Denver Nuggets falling to 0-2. There's some panic. There's some concern. Where do you fall on the Denver Nuggets, who really have some concerns in their depth?
I am super concerned because you get a monster Nikola Jokic game, right? 14 of 26 from the field, a career high 7 threes on 12 attempts, finishes with 41, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. And yet you lose to a Clippers team that I think most people coming into the year down Kawhi Leonard. The biggest concern about the Clippers, Rylan, was that they were going to give your Thunder Cooper flag somehow. So this is not a team that you should be losing to when Nikola Jokic has a night like that. They lose Bruce Brown 2 years ago. They lose Kentavious Caldwell-Pope this offseason, and they never meaningfully replace either of them. The attempt at that was Russell Westbrook, and so far this year he is 2 for 18 from the field. They are a minus 35 in the 40 minutes he has played. The Clippers are leaving him open like he has a timeshare on the right side of the wing and just letting him bomb away from 3. That did not go well. It is a disaster, basically, anytime Jokic is not on the floor, to the point that they had to bring Jokic back in with the bench units in the second half. It looked a little bit better, but you just cannot wear this guy down early in the season. We've seen that movie play out before. It does not have a happy ending for the Denver Nuggets. So I'm pretty concerned.
Yeah, obviously it's too early to panic, but it is eyebrow raising that, like, think about what we're talking about here. We're talking about a career night from the best player in the world who's won multiple MVPs, who's been there, done that, won a championship. Like, he's accomplished a lot. And for you to still get a career night from him where he lights it up from beyond the arc and you spoil it because a team that is relying on 50-year-old James Harden and role players, frankly, to carry them through this Kawhi injury. Out on your home floor, 2 losses in Denver, where you have the altitude effect and everything else, and you got the benefit of not only playing a shorthanded Clippers team with no Kawhi, but a Thunder team that did not have a backup center on the roster. Hartenstein out, Jay Will out, Kenrich out. So it is very concerning to me that Denver does not have the depth to compete even in the regular season, even with a career night from Jokic. And I don't really know how it gets fixed. That's why I think it's concerning. If this was just a blanketed 0-2 start and they didn't shoot well against Oklahoma City and they squandered this opportunity against the Clippers in what was a back-and-forth game down the stretch where Murray had a much better second half than he did his first half, I wouldn't be too concerned. But it's been the combination of those 2 games, the lack of depth in each of them, and I don't see a way out of this. I don't see a way where you can revamp this bench unit by February, and after that ship sails with a trade deadline, where do you go from here? So these kind of fixes have to come internally with what's in-house, and there's not much left to do, I don't think.
I think that maybe the single biggest culprit of all this is Michael Porter Jr. And I hate to say that because I think a lot of it is out of control. And I think without the back issues, we're talking about someone who is like a multi-time All-NBA type player. And you still see flashes and moments of those talent of that talent, excuse me. But the contract they gave him was basically a bet on saying, hey, this guy's going to continue to progress and he's going to become the third head of this three-headed monster, right? Because Aaron Gordon is just supposed to be Aaron Gordon. No, he didn't have his best night or best day against the Clippers, but he did enough. MPJ, conversely, 0 for 6. And the scariest part to me is like one of the league's just like truly unconscious gunners when he's at his best is like he was passing up open threes down the stretch of this game. Like he had one where he just like whipped into the corner to Aaron Gordon, who missed it. He had another one where he cut off the wing, and Nikola Jokic, who does not really make mistakes with guys he's played with for years, whipped it to that wing saying, hey, I'm tilting the defense. MPJ, you're supposed to be there. He wasn't there because he did not want to shoot that three ball. Finishes the afternoon 4 for 13, 0 for 6 from distance. And when he's not shooting well, like just doesn't really contribute in a ton of other areas. Like, again, the idealized version of him as a player is saying, all right, well, I'm 6'10", super athletic with a great handle. I'm getting to the rim. I'm playing great defense. Did have 2 steals, did have 3 assists, did have 9 rebounds, but none of that's enough on this version of the Nuggets. And the other bet they've made is that Jamal Murray is someone who could step up and have like a second or third team All-NBA type year in a case where their depth is threatened. Again, he was good tonight, but he struggled at the start of this one. Finally got the two-man game going with Nikola Jokic. I know he's never made an all-star team mostly due to injuries, but at a certain point, you just have to say Jamal Murray is who he is, and there's just simply not enough here around Jokic. So I'm with you. Like, a lot of issues, a lot of weight on younger guys like Strother and Watson and Brown, who are all good. Brown in particular had a really nice performance, but I just don't see the ceiling because I don't think any one of those guys is smashing through this window that we've set for them and really helping Jokic like do something meaningful this year.
And that's what I think has, I'm sure, Locked On Nuggets and a bit of a concern meter tilting toward the red, because we've got a pretty good sample size of like Murray not is only concerning, but you're really starting to wonder, is this just who he is? And he's kind of regressed, if anything, in his career. And then you've got a 2-game sample size where one game you did get a good Porter game and you did get a good Gordon game against Oklahoma City, and it wasn't even enough to be competitive at home against a shorthanded Thunder team. And then in this game, they were not good. So if anything, we see that the role players around them who already are a bit subpar based upon what they've shown are going to be streaky, and that's just not a recipe for long-term success. But the reason I keep that concern, Gavin, is because we've seen this story in the NBA time and time again. When you have the best player in the world, things typically work out in your favor, but they also have the Russell Westbrook problem. And I think that it can get thrown in Russell Westbrook's face because of what it was, throughout his career in the past. But in this case, what do you want him to do? Because you're still trying to let Murray run the secondary unit. And we know we have a 20-year sample size that Russell Westbrook off ball is not a good player. So the fact that they thought that they could just let Murray run the secondary offense and put Russell Westbrook off ball, I think shows the entire flawed system of what I believe is a kind of overconfident front office.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And it is stunning to me that teams, Rylan, I hate to say this to the Locked On Thunder host, but it's stunning to me that teams continue to bet on Russell Westbrook. Because when was the last time he was a positive contributor? I would argue it was that Wizards team where like he helped guide them into the first round of the playoffs. And that was it, right? That was as far as it can go. And if you are not using him as like an on-ball primary type threat, and we're seeing these bench mismatched like starter bench units with him and Jamal Murray, like you are just not maximizing him because he gives you nothing off the ball. He's the worst high volume 3-point shooter in the history of basketball. The usage doesn't make sense, and it doesn't seem like there was a lot of thought. Like to me, like we're saying, like, are we panicked? It felt like the front office was a little bit panicked with Russ because it's like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, and I know he had good moments on the Clippers last year, but then he went totally haywire in the playoffs. So I don't really know what the hope was there. To me, it very similar to some other teams we're going to talk about the rest of the show. Hint, hint. Those 2030 and 2031 draft picks that they can now trade this year, like that's the avenue for improvement. I don't know if you like attach those to MPJ. I don't know if you attach those to like Russ and like some of their bench pieces, but like it almost needs to be MPJ just because the outgoing salary has to be sufficient to bring back someone better. Who that guy is, like maybe it hasn't emerged yet. Maybe they're the team that makes a run and talks themselves into Brandon Ingram. I'm not quite sure, but it just feels like it is going to take outside help. And it just, I mean, it goes back to 5 years ago, the tragedy of that Jamal Murray torn ACL right after they made the Aaron Gordon trade. They looked like far and away the best team in basketball, and they lost 2 Murray playoff runs. They lost 2 years of Jokic's prime. And it feels like the way, I don't even want to say it's been totally mismanaged just because some of it is salary realities. Like it doesn't really feel like there's a window to fix this without gambling pretty much all their draft future.
Coming up, let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Are they a real threat to bounce back in the West? Plus, is the East getting shaken up at all? But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel today, Gavin, because you can start the season with the bang on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So if you're in the middle of the game, you want to go into live betting, you want the spreads, player props, over-unders, this is your place at FanDuel. You get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And of course, we have a whole nother slate of basketball on Sunday that you can go enjoy. For example, a game that I think will get highlighted in Locked On NBA game nights, Sixers Pacers. Sixers are a 5-point dog in Indiana. You can go bet on that on FanDuel. We're back on Locked On NBA game nights. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. We're here for you literally every day, recapping all of the games before. So every team will be highlighted on Locked On game nights. You can also go check out the Locked On podcast for your favorite team. We have all 30 teams. I host Locked On Thunder. Gavin, you host Locked On Knicks. So 2 really contender teams this year that you can go check out, plus anyone in between. But Gavin, you look at Memphis, and this is a game that I was really excited about looking at the schedule to see Memphis, who's trying to bounce back. They have Ja back. They have the guys that were hurt last year back, Jaren Jackson Jr., they have Desmond Bane. You look at this game against Orlando, I thought that this was going to be a really fun game, really competitive game, and Memphis really controlled it for at least 40 of the 48 minutes in this game. How much do you buy into the Grizzlies bouncing back and making some noise in the West?
So first, I want to say this is just the most fun I've had watching a team all year. Part of that is when I saw the Celtics tie the 3-point record. I was watching that from the perspective of being a Knicks fan, so I did not have fun doing that. But I love this Grizzlies team, and I know this was coming off a really poor finish against the Rockets, where I think the Rockets were like plus 20 in the fourth quarter of that game. But playing against Orlando, who is in some ways, maybe this is an insult to the Grizzlies, because the Grizzlies have had real success in a way Orlando hasn't quite yet. But Orlando's kind of like an East Coast version of Memphis in that they have like all this depth. Like they basically never put out a below average NBA player, with the possible exception of someone like Anthony Black, who's still younger and kind of finding his way. The Grizzlies are just like this house of misfit toys, but in the best way ever. I take a lot of pride in my NBA knowledge. I knew who JAY HUFF was. I couldn't say that I could picture him in my mind before this year. And the dude is out there having multiple reverse lob dunks in this game. Like, you have Ja to Jaren to JAY HUFF. Like that is fun. Like another one where Marcus Smart hitting from past half court. He's also hitting 3 threes. He's blocking shots. Like it is just ridiculous. And I love all the different ways. Like they are really in their bag in terms of designing offense around Ja Morant. Like just, this was a 2-minute stretch to end the second quarter. You had to play with Santi Aldama as the ball handler. They used Ja Morant, who's like 6'10", Ja Morant at 6'1", as the screener. He rolls to the rim, catch, one-handed finish, absolutely sick. Another one where Brandon Clark gets a rebound. Ja Morant leaks out like a wide receiver on a go route, like Hail Mary past him. Ja catch in one motion, double pump lob to Aldama for a layup. And then to end the second quarter, guard to guard pick and roll with him and Marcus Smart. A no-look pocket pass for Ja between 2 defenders to Smart for a layup. Like it is just a fun team. Like Edey is just is obviously a freak of nature out there. Great to have Jaren Jackson back. And all this is without Vince Williams and GG Jackson. So to finally belatedly answer your question, I am all in on the Memphis Grizzlies. I think it's going to take some time to coalesce. I think they're still young. Do I think this is their year to get out of the West? No, I think Dallas and OKC and even Minnesota are in a different tier. But I think they're going to win 50 games this year. I think they get to the second round, and I think they give whoever they find there just a heck of a battle. But what have you thought of the Grizzlies so far?
Yeah, so I think that Taylor Jenkins is one of the best coaches in the NBA, and that shouldn't be spoiled just because of all the adversity that they went through over the last couple of years. Obviously, a lot of that self-inflicted, but some of it out of everybody's control, like the injuries to Smart and the gang a year ago. But now that they're back, a play you didn't even mention was that Zach Edey hit a 3. Like, oh yeah, they have the most fun roster in the sport. I did like the Memphis Orlando comparison, because like Orlando is another tag team of young guys who are bursting onto the scene, and people sometimes overlook them, sometimes overrate them, whatever. It's just hard to know what to do with them at times. And I think that Memphis is the same way. Like, no one wants to put them in like the top echelon of contenders, but I think that you also shouldn't put them as like just cast them away as a play-in team just because of their record a year ago. I think this team legitimately can be a spoiler. I'm not going to say a contender, but they can give you a 7-game series, and they can even win a playoff series and then do it again to where by the time you finally get to your end destination, yeah, you're going to make it further than Memphis, but they're going to beat you up on your way there, and it could really ruin your season because you had to go through Memphis instead of somebody else. So I think that that's where they're at this year, and then you have another offseason to regroup and get better, and then launch back into where we're talking Memphis in that conversation in the Western Conference. But they are a team who, if you're Oklahoma City, Minnesota, if you're a team like that, Denver, who we talked about has concerns, if you're a team that is expected to get to the conference finals or better, you really just hope and hope and hope that you're on the opposite side of the bracket, no matter how it shakes out, of Memphis. But another team in the West that could be spunky is the Spurs. Like, the Spurs had a fun game today where they almost blew it to the Rockets, but you got that presence of Chris Paul. And I think that this is exactly why the landing spot of the Spurs made sense for Chris Paul, because this team is young enough to stay in games and to be competitive, but without a veteran point guard, they were always going to blow these type of games to Houston. But instead, Chris Paul, even without scoring, was an extension of Popovich, was able to settle the group down, and was able to get the Spurs a big win. Can the Spurs make a little noise? Because every year, Gavin, we see a surprise team.
Yeah, Chris Paul at this point, excuse me on the multiple Knicks analogies in this one, but reminds me of like 40-year-old Jason Kidd on the 2012-13 Knicks, that great Knicks team where he just, like, the Knicks were rolling and he just didn't shoot the whole year. Like, I think he literally like played in all 10 of their playoff games and maybe made like 2 or 3 field goals. I got to look this up at some point. But tonight, Chris Paul, 1 for 3. Only shot he made was a wide open 3 that the Rockets, I think it was Şengün, basically just dared him to shoot, and he nailed it. But he doesn't really have to shoot. Like, you're right. His presence is immense. Like, to me, like, my favorite part of this is just watching him talk to Victor. Like, after like little plays, like one where Victor got an early seal, and so many times last year, San Antonio would just kind of look him off in those situations. Chris tried to get it to him, overthrew it, immediately gave him my bad. Next play, like, Victor doesn't step up on like Fred VanVleet, gives up a 3, and Chris Paul's like, hey, like, you got to get up on that. He's a shooter, which all seem like simple things. But even when Victor was a rookie last year, I don't know who on the Spurs had like the gravitas or the experience to say, hey, you need to be there. And as smart as Victor is, as advanced as he is, like, I think there is incredible value in someone just being like the Hall of Famer, the point guard, and being able to like push him to the right spots. On top of that, a lot of fun stuff in the win tonight. Wemby hit a logo 3 right at the beginning of the game off the dribble. Area has to improve is more so catch and shoot. He was really good off the dribble 3-point shooter last season, but that still exciting. The Spurs are letting him initiate offense. Defensively, he's clearly stronger. He's holding up better against Şengün, a guy who could just kind of shove him under the rim last year. That's not happening so much this year. You put a smaller guy on him, like tonight it was Amen Thompson for one play. Like, he's just eating on that, like, spin right to the rim for a layup. Like, and he doesn't, like, unless a guy's comparable to him from a physical strength perspective, like the length is just overwhelming. Sidestep 3 to beat the third quarter buzzer. That was awesome. Saw really good stuff from Keldon Johnson, a guy, if I'm being honest, I kind of forgot existed. He had 16 points, 8 rebounds in just 29 minutes, apparently lost 20 pounds this offseason. Looks like he's in incredible shape, super strong, bouncing off guys at the rim. Stephen Castle had like a couple of great moments defensively with Wemby. So just a fun team. They still have to get Devin Vassell back, but I'm with you. I'm really excited about where they are right now.
Yeah, I think their world's better than a year ago whenever Jeremy Sohan was playing point guard. You mentioned that they're going to get Vassell back, who I really like. And I'm not ready to say that they're going to make the play-in, but I'm not going to count it out because, like, we look back on the Thunder and their rise to get here and how surprising that play-in was and how then they made the playoffs last year and now they're contenders. What we forget about that play-in appearance was that it shouldn't have happened, frankly, even as host of Locked On Thunder. Like, the Mavericks absolutely bowed out of the race. And without Luka doing that, without the Mavericks doing that to preserve a pick, then the Thunder never make the play-in. And so that's how fine the margin was for the Thunder to actually get in. And so I'm not going to rule out that, like, the Spurs could hang around just like the Thunder did, and with no real incentive to tank, some other team who is owning a protected pick or has injuries or the litany of things that can happen to make them bow out of the race, you almost get there by default. The Thunder, don't get me wrong, had an amazing season that year, but they kind of got there by being the last man standing. And with a Spurs team that's really not incentivized to lose, they could be the last man standing in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think there is there is an urgency there, even though with rookies, or I guess in Wemby's case, a second-year guy, you don't think of that urgency. You're like, all right, we have him for 4 years. They're never going to turn down that 5-year max. Like, I do think Wemby is competitive enough and has, as just by proxy of being perhaps the greatest prospect, you could say, since LeBron, some have said since then named Lou Alcindor, there is unique leverage there for a second-year guy. And there is an urgency on his end to compete. I think the Spurs showed maybe a surprising amount of restraint, only adding Chris Paul. But I think in part it was because they had legitimate faith in what's in-house. And look, it's gonna take work, right? Because the Rockets, I think, coming off like that glorious win over the Grizzlies, like did not play their best tonight. Didn't seem like they totally had their legs. Like Jalen Green was airballing threes in the second quarter. I think,
but yeah.
Sure. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them to actually get there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made a move. Like, I wouldn't be like totally shocked if like they said, hey, let's like package, I don't know, maybe it is Keldon Johnson, maybe it is Jeremy Sohan, maybe it is, I don't know, Zach Collins, and some of our draft capital, because they have a lot of it at this point, and try to get an upgrade midseason, because Wemby might just be good enough that it warrants that. If he's a top 10 player in the NBA this year, like you play to win. So I don't think it's impossible.
I wouldn't necessarily buy the Spurs going to the play-in, but it's worth monitoring. Coming up, we're going to play buy or sell on the rest of these NBA games and the biggest topics from them. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Game Time, go check out the Game Time app. Gavin, I think this is the perfect time to go check out Game Time because it's the last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed, and there's no other sport like the NBA where you need the last-minute tickets, because you and I both know you can list guys as questionable, probable, game time decision, and up until like 90 minutes before tip, you don't really know if your favorite player is going to go out there. So you can wait it out with Game Time, get the last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I also love their all-in pricing. You toggle that feature on, and boom, you see exactly what you're going to pay with no extra fees. And a view from your seat. Maybe you're traveling around with your favorite NBA team this year and you're going to venues like you've never been before, perhaps the Intuit Dome, which few of us have been so far with only a couple of games there. You can go check it out today and get a view from your seat at Game Time. Go download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Go download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. We're back on Locked On NBA Game Night. We're recapping every game from the night before, Monday through Sunday, here for you literally every single day. I'm Rylan Stiles. Alongside me is Gavin Schall. And Gavin, let's rapid fire through a quick edition of Buy or Sell. The Locked On NBA Game Night stock market is open. And the first item that you can buy or sell, Gavin, after a 2-0 start, with a margin of victory of a plus 34 point differential, like, are the Thunder the very best team in the West? Buy or sell?
I buy it. I buy it every day of the week. And Rylan, I promise I'm not just sucking up to you. And in fact, I hate your team because you took Isaiah Hartenstein, my great basketball love, out of my life for the foreseeable future. Maybe he'll come back one day, but they're doing all this without him, right? Like, the defense is just overwhelming. The craziest thing to me in terms of just the luxuries that Sam Presti has at his disposal right now and Mark Daigneault is that Alex Caruso, like, it feels, correct me if I'm wrong on this, it feels like they barely needed him so far. Like, they just have enough, like they're totally smothering. I want to see them play some better competition, as we saw today from Denver. Maybe not the ultimate litmus test for Oklahoma City. Chicago, certainly not the ultimate litmus test for Oklahoma City, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this side of Nikola Jokic, I'm betting on him, and maybe Luka Doncic as much as any player in the Western Conference. The supporting cast is incredible, and the most important thing to always remember is they just have infinite flexibility to upgrade, and I wouldn't be surprised if Presti finally pushed some of those chips in more than a Gordon Hayward fashion and kind of got the final piece for this team. But you know better than I do, man. Do you buy it?
I'm buying it. I think that through 2 games, they've separated themselves a bit from that jumbled mess of, like, is it Dallas? Is it Denver? Is it Minnesota? Is it Oklahoma City? Because they're winning by 20 points on the road 2 times without at all their starting front court. Like, they don't have Hartenstein. They don't have Jay Will. They don't have Kenrich Williams. They don't have anyone to play backup center besides Ousmane Dieng, who's 6'10", 10 at best on a good day. I just think that whenever they get healthy, they'll take an even further step up. They've not shot the ball well yet in either game, and it still has not mattered because of that overwhelming defense. And as you mentioned, Caruso is literally a luxury. And on any other team, he's one of your absolute best guys. But for the Thunder, he's just such an upgrade because now that you don't have Josh Giddey on the floor with Chet, now you have to guard the Thunder 1 through 5 traditionally. Whereas before, whenever you didn't have to respect Josh Giddey as a shooter, teams would put their power forward or their small forward on Chet and leave their center on Giddey and leave their center in the paint. Frankly, no one was guarding Josh Giddey. And that really crammed things, that really hurt things for as good as the Thunder were. They won 57 games and they were a top 5 offense defense. This just makes things even better by forcing teams and forcing players like Vucevic to play them straight up. And even though the 3-point shot hasn't fallen yet, Chet has still been widely impressive. Had a career high night in boards tonight. Another double-double for him, 2 straight on the year. And you know what SGA is. You have a number 1 overall player like in this league. You have a top 5 player in this league on your team and a number 1 option. You're going to be all right. So I'm buying the Thunder as the top team in the West, which is not exactly a hot take. But this one's a little bit more fun, Gavin. Buy or sell. The Detroit Pistons are fun.
I buy it. I'm so happy to buy it. The Pistons fans have been suffering for such a long time, and it was a joy to watch. I think the biggest thing to me is that Cade is healthy, like one of the first healthy off seasons of his career. And the burst is there in a way I just haven't watched enough Pistons the last few years. I hope everyone will forgive me for that, but I haven't seen from him in his NBA career. And I think part of that is where he's at athletically. But I think the reason he toasted Drew Holiday, arguably the best perimeter defender in basketball, multiple times tonight was because of the spacing around him. Like I went back, watched the highlights, looked at like just one of the plays he got a dunk, and it was Tobias Harris, or sorry, he got a pick and roll lob to Beef Stew, and the spacing around him was Tobias Harris, Simone Fontecchio, and Malik Beasley. Where last year in any given game that could have been Killian Hayes, Asar Thompson, and Marvin Bagley, right? Like it is just a whole new world. I think part of that empowerment is that like all those guys around him are just super confident, and like give credit to JB Bickerstaff for empowering the role players there. Like Beasley is just like taking off the dribble bombs. Fontecchio, like in the fourth quarter against the Celtics, launching with confidence. And Jaden Ivey is just totally different as a shooter. Like he's another guy who looks like he just maybe added a little bit more muscle. Like guys are just kind of bouncing off him on the way to the rim. But I think part of the reason he looks faster is because you actually are starting to have to play up on him. And I think that's going to be like a slow realization over the course of the year. Like Drew Holiday was still daring him to shoot. They didn't have quite enough tonight to get it done, but I thought this was an incredible performance. Obviously, far and away the most. The Celtics were pushed all year. Even someone like Jalen Duren like can actually take advantage of the Celtics cross-matching by running the floor. Like I just think there are more good basketball players. There are more adults in the room, and their two like centerpieces are just playing the best ball of their life. What have you seen from them?
Yeah, I'm buying the Pistons. It was a close 10-point loss close loss to the Boston Celtics. I just think that the biggest difference in this year and last year is that you have a coach that cares and a coach who has this team that's young, playing motivated basketball and organized basketball, where there's actually like a plan. So I'm buying the Pistons being fun this year. Looking at a different team who had a narrow loss, the Hornets did lose to the Heat, but they've still been impressive early on. Buy or sell, the Charlotte Hornets are going to make the play-in.
Oh, the play-in. All right, let me pull up my Eastern. Let's go through this team by team. Boston, they're not ahead of Cleveland. No. I'm going to say Atlanta. No. I like how Atlanta's look. Orlando. No. Knicks. No. Bucks. No. Heat. No. Pacers. No. Bulls, Raptors, Hornets, Sixers. No. So that leaves one spot for them. I'm going to play the odds. I'm going to. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to buy it just because I don't love any of those other teams. Honestly, the Pistons might be the closest one. Like, I just don't like how the Bulls have looked. I don't like how the Raptors have looked. I know they've been beat up. The Hornets have gotten this done without Brandon Miller. LaMelo Ball, fantastic first 2 games, a million turnovers, but he's had his moments. Trey Mann, modern day Iverson, who knew it? Apparently not the Thunder because they traded him. The defense is a little shaky, but who cares? They're fun. They're good. Again, you talk about them being professional. I think they found that under the new coaching staff. So I like Charlotte just enough. I'm not super confident in it though. Will you have a little bit more of a forceful take than I will, Rylan?
I'm going to buy it because I just think that you go down the list. I'm not as convicted on the Hawks as you are. I do think that they're going to get in, But past that, like, I think that the Raptors have made it pretty clear, like with what they're saying themselves, I made it pretty clear that they're going to pack it up. By February, by March, especially, they're going to pack things in and just play for a lottery pick. And I think that the Hornets are ready to just let a season play out. Don't pull any levers, don't hit any buttons, just play a season out. And that alone, I think, can get you a play-in spot in the East. And then you mix in LaMelo, who I think has been awesome. I think that it's a shame that Brandon Miller got hurt because he is incredible and is going to take another step this year. So when he's healthy, it's awesome. And then you have the microwave and Trey Mann, who any given night can go off and help your bench lead you to a game. And I look at this team and I think that they really care. They're having fun and they care about playing hard every single night. And we know that in Adam Silver's NBA, that's not always guaranteed. So I think that the Hornets will make the play-in out East. Sticking in the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've started out hot. They've yet to drop a game. They took care of business against the Washington Wizards. Do you buy or sell the East being legitimate East contenders?
No, I don't. I need to see more. It's looked really good so far. I love what we've seen from Evan Mobley, where he's comfortable bringing up the court and attacking someone off the dribble. He's comfortable bringing up the court, nailing a step back three. I think they've incorporated, like they found ways to space with their two bigs. Part of that is Mobley being like at times a slightly more willing shooter. Tonight going 0 for 2. Part of it is just, I think, Kenny Atkinson coming from Golden State and incorporating some of those principles. But the fundamental truth of this team is we have a 2-year sample size of them not being at their best when their big fours all on the floor together, right? When they went on that insane run last year, I think it was 17-2 over 19 games. It was Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen. They had a different run where it was Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and they look good. Those four guys just don't make sense. If they make a move and they move off, it would probably be Allen or Garland at this point, and they bring in a wing. That makes a ton of sense. I like it. I still need that fifth starter spot to be really solidified. I don't love them playing with two bigs. I just don't think it makes a ton of sense. And I think Boston and to a lesser degree New York are just a step ahead. Are you any more confident than I am?
I am fully selling this. It's going to be a fun team. Cleveland, you're going to be pulling this receipt all season long because you guys are going to win plenty of basketball games and you guys are going to win a ton of regular season games. But when push comes to shove, come playoff time, I'm for sure taking New York. I'm for sure taking Boston. Me personally, Philly is a drug I can't quit. I know that there's skepticism out there about Embiid and Paul George and everything. I can't quit Philly. I still believe in Philly. And then, I mean, even going to Milwaukee was not look great this season. But again, when it's the playoffs, it's a different animal. I'm still believing in Dame and Giannis. So it was a fun run last year. I know that you have that coupled with a fun start. I still don't buy them as contenders just yet. But perhaps in the course of an 82-game season, they can prove us wrong. But this is a subject, Gavin, that you know plenty about. You're going to give your hardest take about this subject on our buy and sell market. Buy or sell the Minnesota Timberwolves, who got a massive win over the Toronto Raptors, got better with Julius Randle. He's an upgrade from Karl Anthony Towns.
I'm going to sell for now. I think it's plausible. Julius gives them... I almost want to say like someone to trade for other stuff because I still don't really believe in the fit. He had an incredible second game shooting the basketball, starting off 4 for 5 from 3. His off the dribble stuff is working and they're giving him a large dose of time with Naz Reid, which I think is the recipe for making that work. I don't see how in the playoffs him and Gobert makes a ton of sense because there is zero track record of Julius being a positive player in the playoffs. Part of that is because 2 of his 3 tries, he was injured. Last year, he missed it entirely. So that's why you hear the hesitation in my voice. It's still a little TBD. He is an exceptional shot maker. He can play really selflessly at times. I just don't think there's enough attentiveness there defensively. And push comes to shove, he's not a good enough 3-point shooter. Dante DiVincenzo is an absolute killer. He's going to help them. I think it was crucial that they acquired him because Mike Conley is clearly falling off some kind of ramp at this point. But in the aggregate, no, I think they'd be better with Towns.
I'm going to cop out here. And if we're talking, is Randle a upgrade from Towns? And that's the only conversation. Sure. I am selling it 100 times out of 100. But if we couple it with Randle and DiVincenzo and what you hinted at, that they can now parlay this by February into something else, I will buy that is an upgrade because of what it allows you to do in the future. Now, if those future things never happen and you don't flip him at the deadline, then I would fully sell it. I'm fully selling it 1v1 as players. I think that the Knicks got a way better player. but I do like the pipeline and the lane that they've given themselves down the stretch of this season. So we'll see which way it shakes out. But as far as did they get better from Cat to Randall, I say no. I sell that despite him getting a lot of love in the early season. Speaking of a ton of love, I mean, you cannot open up social media without seeing JJ Redick being praised all over. The former podcaster, perhaps you and I can get on the bench eventually. Buy or sell? Did JJ Redick fix the Lakers?
I buy that he fixed what could be fixed. I think that is the best way I can frame it. I do not buy them as contenders. If that was the question, the answer would have been no. I buy that he's fixed what could be fixed. Obviously, you've seen it. You've seen it on Twitter, right? They run really beautiful offense at this point. I mean, some of like just LeBron launching a hook pass cross court into a dribble handoff for a shooter into like a cut. Like it is fun basketball. They are 3-0. LeBron was ridiculous tonight. And I do think like some of this is just like keeping LeBron happy means you have stretches like LeBron tonight where he scored 11 points in 2 minutes and 2 seconds to start the fourth quarter. You are getting for the second straight year the best possible version of Anthony Davis. Austin Reeves, I feel like, has unlocked a new level, like being leveraged more as an off-ball guy. Dalton Connect, great pick, great fit. They are really good. They're really fun. I don't see them competing for a championship unless there's some big upgrade on the D'Angelo Russell spot.
Yeah, I'm fully buying this. I think that it was now, at the time it was a controversial hire. I think there's no mistake about it. This was a really good hire. And I think that, JJ Redick, people forget of like most coaches come from a former player background. He just so happened to have a side quest in there in between the court and the sidelines. But with JJ, I think that these guys really care about him, care about playing for him. You've seen what it's done to LeBron, who now is talking about playing in all 82 games, like all 82 games. And then their offense is worlds better, although it was a low bar to clear in terms of just aesthetically pleasing on the court. And I think that you're getting the best out of AD. You're maximizing this roster, and you're maximizing literally every player. You mentioned Dalton Connect. There's no coach in the world who I think could figure out how to use Dalton Connect better than JJ Redick can figure out how to use Dalton Connect. And it's why he's been a rookie who's made an instant impact. So what I buy is JJ Redick, unlike any other coach you could have hired, is getting the absolute most out of this Lakers team. Now, is the absolute most of this team capable of doing anything substantial? No, but it is getting 100% out of the team, which is all you can really ask of a coach to do anyway. So I do buy that he has fixed, quote unquote, the Los Angeles Lakers. They've got a big win over the Kings. The last game of the night, the Suns beat the Mavericks in what was a really fun game. You had Luka, you had KD, even with no Bradley Beal and starting Ryan Dunn, the Suns get a big win. And in our lockdown NBA season preview, as a peek behind the curtain, we were looking how are we going to split up these round tables, and the Suns got thrown into the contender spot. And none of us, even Locked On Suns host Brendan Clean, did not believe that the Suns should be there. They're just kind of there for the vibes. But after how this season has started and the grit that they've shown, Gavin, buy or sell, the Suns are contenders.
Rylan, I'm so sorry. My laptop. I am selling it, Rylan. This is an issue near and dear to my heart because I literally live across the street from the Suns arena right now. So fun night here in the Valley of the Sun, but I'm still a little bit worried about what the Suns do against teams with really aggressive defense. This is something I've seen people who cover the Suns point out over and over again. It was really readily apparent against the Clippers where you saw KD just losing the basketball and tripping over himself over and over again. You wouldn't really think that would be a problem with three ball handlers as experienced, as advanced as him, Booker, and Beal, but it tends to be because there's not really another guy on the roster who can take on that ball handling load. I don't think KD is like quite at the same level as a creator as he was. It's been a little bit of a weird start to the season for Devin Booker, even though he's overall pulled it together enough for them to win 2 games. I still like them, but I think they have to figure that out, and that's something Mike Budenholzer has to figure out. And then the other really crucial thing is they have to find a way to upgrade Jusuf Nurkic. I just don't really buy that defensively he gets you to where you want to go. As a Knicks guy, I'm wondering if there's a world where they could get Mitchell Robinson. That seems challenging given that the Suns are past the second apron, I believe, and the Knicks are past the first apron. So you would have to involve other teams. You'd have to be really on point with your salary matching. It would be tricky. But if there's some world where they can get an upgrade defensively at center, I really like them getting Ryan Dunn. I love their starts of the year. KD looked like at his best tonight in that win over Dallas, but that sweep against Minnesota is still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, so I'm glad that we have a disagreement here. I'm buying the Suns. Buying the Suns. I think that they have a massive head coach upgrade. I really like the Tyus Jones pickup as things go along. Like, I think that that's a pickup that will shine in the later half of this year once you have some camaraderie and chemistry under your belt. And you get to the finish line with a healthy three-headed monster of Durant, Booker, Beal. In a star-driven league, if you're still getting the positive contributions from Ryan Dunn and what we expect from Tyus Jones once he kind of rounds into form with this team, I'm buying him as in consideration of, like, kind of in that Memphis tier we talked about at the top of the show, where you're looking at them and you're saying, yeah, they're probably not going to go to the finals, but man, they can really hurt someone in their quest to get to the very end. So this was a very fun recap of Saturday night slate here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Thank you for making us your first listen. Go check out Locked On Fantasy, check out Locked On Knicks, check out Locked On Thunder, or Locked On whatever your favorite team is. Gavin, thanks so much for being here. We're here for you every single Saturday. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.